This incident occurred approximately 3 years ago, just a few days before Christmas. Specifically, it was December 20th. I was living alone at the time in a rental house just outside of town. It wasn't exactly in the middle of nowhere, but the houses were spaced out enough that if you screamed, your neighbors probably wouldn't hear you unless their windows were open. And since it was winter, nobody's windows were open. I've always been the type of person who checks the locks 3 times before bed. I'm cautious, but nothing prepares you for something like this. I came home from work around 4:30 p.m. It was already getting dark because of the season. As I walked up the porch steps, I saw a package sitting on the welcome mat. It was a medium-sized box, wrapped in plain brown paper. No bow, no holiday print, and weirdly, no shipping label. I picked it up. It felt light. My first thought was that my mom had dropped it off. She lives about an hour away and is famous for dropping off early Christmas gifts without telling anyone. She's terrible at waiting for the actual day. I figured she drove by while I was at work, left it, and forgot to text me. I brought the box inside, kicked off my boots, and locked the door behind me. I took the box into the kitchen and grabbed a pair of scissors. I wasn't scared at all. Why would I be? I was actually smiling, wondering what kind of random gift my mom had bought this time. I cut the tape and opened the flaps. Inside, there was a layer of bubble wrap. I pulled that away and saw a simple black wooden picture frame. I turned it over to see the picture, expecting a family photo or maybe a picture of my dog. My stomach dropped. The smile vanished from my face instantly. It was a photograph of me. In the picture, I was standing at my kitchen sink, washing dishes. I was wearing the same gray hoodie I had worn the night before. I could see the steam rising from the hot water. The angle was from outside, taken through the kitchen window. The darkness of the yard framed the shot. I stood there, frozen, gripping the frame. My brain tried to make sense of it. Who took this? The picture was high quality. It wasn't blurry. Someone had stood in my backyard, right up against the glass, and taken a photo of me while I was completely unaware, listening to music and scrubbing a pan. Suddenly, the silence in the house felt heavy. My cell phone, which I had set on the counter next to the box, began to ring. The sound was so loud in the quiet kitchen that I actually jumped. I looked at the screen. Unknown caller. Usually I don't answer those, but my thumb hit the green button before I could stop myself. I put the phone to my ear, not saying a word. For 3 seconds there was just silence. Then a heavy, wet sound. Breathing. It sounded like someone trying to catch their breath in the cold air. A deep, scratchy male voice spoke. "Did you like it?" My blood ran cold. I hung up immediately. I didn't say anything back. I dropped the phone and scrambled to check the back door. It was locked. I checked the front door again. Locked. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I felt exposed. I grabbed my phone again to dial 911. Crash. The sound of shattering glass exploded through the kitchen. I screamed and dropped to the floor, covering my head. Cold air rushed into the room. I looked up. The very window where the photo had been taken, the one above the sink, was shattered. There was glass all over the counter and the floor. Lying in the middle of the kitchen floor, amidst the shards of glass, was a rock about the size of a baseball. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. I knew I had to get out of the kitchen, but I couldn't stop staring at the rock. There was a piece of notebook paper secured to it with a rubber band. I shouldn't have gone near it. I should have run straight to the bedroom and locked the door. But curiosity, or maybe shock, took over. I crawled forward and grabbed the rock. I pulled the paper off and unfolded it. The handwriting was jagged and messy. It read, "I have more." Panic fully set in. I ran out of the kitchen and into the hallway, away from the broken window. I dialed 911, my fingers fumbling over the numbers. 911, what is your emergency? Someone is at my house, I whispered, my voice trembling. They threw a rock through my window. They're watching me. Okay, ma'am, I have officers dispatched. Are you in a safe place? I'm in the hallway. Everything is locked. Stay on the line with me. As I huddled in the hallway, clutching the phone, a horrifying thought hit me. The note said I have more. More pictures. My phone buzzed against my ear. It wasn't a call. It was a text message from a blocked number. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a split second to look. It was an image file. I opened it. Tears started stinging my eyes. The photo wasn't taken from outside. This photo was taken from inside my bedroom. It showed me sleeping in my bed. The timestamp on the photo was from 3 a.m. this morning. He hadn't just been outside, he had been in my house. While I was asleep, he had stood over my bed, taken a picture, and left without me ever knowing. "Ma'am, are you there?" the dispatcher asked. He was inside. I choked out. He has a picture of me sleeping. Then I heard it. The sound of snow crunching. It wasn't coming from the backyard this time, it was coming from the front porch. Heavy boots are stepping onto the wooden planks. The floorboards creaked. He wasn't running away, he was coming to the front door. I scrambled backward, retreating up the stairs, trying to put as much distance between me and the door as possible. The doorknob to the front door rattled, violently. He wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. He was shaking the door, testing the deadbolt. "He's at the door," I cried into the phone. "Please hurry. They are 2 minutes out, ma'am. 2 minutes is a lifetime when someone is trying to break in." The rattling stopped. For a second, I thought maybe he had given up. Then, a heavy thud hit the door. He was throwing his body weight against it. The wood groaned. I saw the door frame shudder. I ran into the bathroom at the top of the stairs and locked the door. It was the only room with no windows large enough for a person to fit through. I sat in the empty bathtub, pulling the shower curtain closed, clutching a bottle of bleach I kept under the sink as a weapon. Downstairs, I heard a loud crack as the wood of the front door frame finally gave way. The sound of heavy boots on my hardwood floor echoed up the stairs. I held my breath, clamping my hand over my mouth to stop my sobbing. He wasn't rushing, he was walking slowly. "I know you like the pictures," the voice called out. It was coming from the bottom of the stairs. It was the same voice on the phone. "I want to take one more. Just one more, face to face." I heard his foot hit the first step of the stairs, then sirens. Blue and red lights flashed against the bathroom tiles, shining through the small ventilation window. The wail of the sirens was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. The footsteps on the stairs stopped. I heard the intruder run back toward the kitchen. I heard the back door get kicked open, followed by police shouting, "Police! Show me your hands!" I stayed in that bathtub for another 10 minutes until a female officer knocked on the bathroom door and told me it was safe to come out. They never caught him. They found footprints leading from my back door into the woods behind the property, but the tracks disappeared onto a plowed road about a mile away. They did a sweep of my house. They found something that made me move out the very next day. In my bedroom closet, hidden behind my winter coats, they found a small sleeping bag and empty food wrappers. The police estimated he had been living in my closet for at least 3 days, watching me, waiting for me to fall asleep so he could come out. The package on the porch was just his way of letting me know that the game was starting. I live in an apartment complex now, 3rd floor. I have cameras in every room. But sometimes when I'm washing dishes and it's dark outside, I can't bring myself to look at the window. I'm too afraid of what I might see looking back. Before we dive into the next story, if you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to stay updated with our upcoming scary stories. When I was 10 years old, my life was completely flipped upside down. My parents split up, and for reasons I didn't really understand at the time, I had to move in with my dad. I went from living in a busy neighborhood where I knew every kid on the block to a quiet, spread-out suburb where I didn't know a single soul. The transition was rough. My dad tried his best, but he worked a lot, so I spent a good amount of time just wandering around the house or sitting on the front porch, bored out of my mind. The only saving grace was that my dad was already friends with a family that lived just down the street. It was a single mom with 3 kids. Luckily for me, the middle child was a girl named Ashley. She was 2 years older than me, 12 at the time, which feels like a huge age gap when you're a kid, but she was nice enough to let me hang around. We weren't exactly best friends or anything. It was more like a friendship out of convenience. Our parents were friends, so we got stuck together at barbecues or dinners. Over the next couple of years, though, the gap between our ages felt smaller, and we ended up sharing the same circle of friends in the neighborhood. By the time I was 12, and Ashley was 14, things were pretty normal. We had a solid group of kids we hung out with. One of those kids was my good friend Rob. This all happened a week before Christmas. The atmosphere in the neighborhood was actually really nice. Everyone had their lights up, there was a little bit of snow on the ground, and we were all just waiting for school to let out for winter break. One night, Ashley's mom was working a late shift. She was a social worker or a counselor of some kind. I never knew the official title, just that she helped people who were going through really hard times. Because she was working, Ashley and her younger brother, who was about 9, were home alone. My friend Rob went over there to hang out. Now looking back, I know Rob probably had a crush on Ashley. He wasn't really supposed to be there when her mom wasn't home. Parents in our neighborhood were strict about boys and girls hanging out unsupervised, so the plan was for him to leave before her mom's car pulled into the driveway. I was at my dad's house, probably playing video games, completely unaware of what was happening down the street. According to Rob, they were just sitting in the living room watching TV. Ashley's little brother was in the other room playing with some toys. It was around 8 p.m. when they heard a knock at the front door. It wasn't just a regular knock, though. Ashley's mom had this specific rhythm she would use when she forgot her keys or just wanted them to open the door for her. It was like a couple of taps. When Ashley heard that specific rhythm, she jumped up. She looked at Rob with wide eyes. They both panicked, thinking her mom was home early and Rob was about to get busted. Without thinking twice, Rob scrambled toward the back of the house. He opened the window in the laundry room, squeezed through it, and dropped into the backyard. He sprinted through the snow, cut through the neighbor's yard, and ran all the way to his house down the road. He told me later that he felt relieved. He thought he had made a clean escape. He went into his room, caught his breath, and probably played PlayStation for the rest of the night, thinking everything was fine. But it wasn't Ashley's mom at the door. Ashley, thinking the coast was clear and that her mom was waiting in the cold, unlocked the deadbolt and swung the door open. It wasn't her mother. Standing on the porch was a woman Ashley had never seen before. From what the police pieced together later, this woman was the sister of a lady Ashley's mom had been helping through her job. Ashley's mom had been working closely with a client who had severe mental health issues. That client had a sister who had recently been released from a mental institution. Somehow, this woman had become obsessed with the social worker helping her sister. She blamed Ashley's mom for something, maybe for interfering with her family, or maybe it was just a delusion. Nobody really knows the logic. But she had stalked Ashley's mom. She figured out her work schedule. She figured out where she lived. And terrifyingly, she had watched the house long enough to learn the secret knock Ashley's mom used. When Ashley opened that door, the woman forced her way inside. I don't know exactly what happened in the hallway, and I'm glad I don't. But Ashley's younger brother heard the commotion. He peeked out from the other room and saw a stranger attacking his sister. He didn't scream. He was smart. He ran out the back door, the same general direction Rob had gone, and pounded on the next door neighbor's door until they answered. They called 911 immediately. I remember waking up to the sound of sirens. It wasn't just one siren. It sounded like every police car in the county was on our street. My dad ran into my room and told me to stay away from the windows, but of course I looked. The street was lit up with red and blue flashing lights. It was blinding against the white snow. I saw an ambulance, but it wasn't in a hurry to leave. That's usually a bad sign. The details didn't come out until a few days later. It's hard to even type this out because it feels like a nightmare, but it was real. The woman had brutally murdered Ashley, but she didn't just kill her. She did things that I can't wrap my head around. When the police entered the house, they found the woman sitting in the living room, just waiting. She didn't fight them. They found Ashley's body in the bathroom. The woman had dragged her there and put her in the bathtub completely naked. And the worst part, the part that made my dad throw up when he heard it, was that the woman had decapitated her. The police couldn't find Ashley's head initially. The house was decorated for Christmas, with a tree in the corner and presents piled underneath it. The police had to search through the scene, and that's where they found it. The woman had wrapped Ashley's head and hidden it among the Christmas presents under the tree. I remember the feeling in the pit of my stomach when I heard that. It was sick. It was twisted. It felt like something from a slasher movie, not something that happens to the girl you grew up living down the street from. Rob was a mess. He kept saying, I should have stayed. If I hadn't run out the window, maybe I could have fought her off. Maybe Ashley would still be here. He carried that guilt for years. But the truth is, if Rob had opened that door, or if he had been standing there when the woman came in, there would have just been 2 bodies in that house instead of 1. The woman had a large hunting knife and the element of surprise. Rob was just a kid. There was nothing he could have done. I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. My dad said it would be too much for me, and honestly, he was probably right. They had a closed casket, obviously. Christmas that year was canceled in our house. We didn't put up lights, we didn't open gifts. It just didn't feel right. I've never told this story to anyone. Not my wife, not my brother, and definitely not the police. I kept my mouth shut because I had to. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't worth the risk, especially when you have a family. This happened 4 years ago. It was early December. My wife, Katie, wanted a real Christmas tree that year. Usually, we just went to the Home Depot lot, bought a pre-cut fir, and strapped it to the roof. But that year, Katie saw something on Instagram about going into the national forest and cutting your own tree. She thought it would be a nice tradition. I agreed, but because of our work schedules, I couldn't go on the weekend. So I decided to take a half day off work on a Tuesday and go get one myself to surprise her and my daughter Leah, who was 5 at the time. I drove my Ford up into the mountains. In our state, you can buy a $10 permit to cut a tree in specific areas. I drove past the main designated areas because they looked picked over. I wanted a really good one. I found a dirt service road that wound deeper into the woods. It was legally part of the cutting zone, just further out. It was about 3:30 p.m. when I parked. The sun sets early in the mountains, so the light was already getting that gray, flat look. The air was freezing, probably around 20 degrees. I grabbed my handsaw and a pair of work gloves, locked the truck, and walked into the tree line. It was quiet. Too quiet. The snow was about 6 inches deep, making a loud crunch with every step I took. I walked for maybe 15 minutes until I found a clearing. There it was. A perfect noble fir, about 7 feet tall. I knelt and started sawing. It takes a lot more effort to cut down a fresh tree than people think. I was sweating and breathing hard. The saw was loud, rhythmically grinding against the wood. That's when I heard it. It wasn't a twig snapping. It was the sound of snow compressing. Crunch. I stopped sawing. The noise stopped immediately. Hello? I called out. Nothing. Just the wind blowing through the pine needles. I figured it was another person looking for a tree, or maybe a deer. I went back to sawing, but faster this time. I felt a weird prickling on the back of my neck. You know that feeling when you just know eyes are on you? I cut through the last bit of the trunk, and the tree toppled over. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed the trunk and started dragging it back toward the road. Dragging a tree through snow is exhausting. I had to stop to catch my breath. I looked back at the tree line I had just come from. About 50 yards back, behind a thick cluster of spruce trees, I saw a shape. It was dark, contrasting against the white snow. It ducked behind a trunk the second I turned my head. It wasn't an animal. It was tall. It was a person. Panic spiked in my chest. I didn't call out this time. I just gripped the tree harder and started walking faster. I heard the footsteps behind me again. They weren't trying to be stealthy anymore. They were heavy and fast. Someone was running. I abandoned the tree. I dropped it right there in the snow and sprinted the last 100 yards to the truck. My heart was hammering in my throat. I could hear the person behind me crashing through the brush, getting closer. I burst out of the tree line and hit the service road. I fumbled for my keys, jamming the unlock button. I reached the driver's side door and grabbed the handle. That's when I saw it. My truck was leaning weirdly to the left. I looked down. Both tires on the driver's side were completely flat, slashed. The rubber was shredded.
Yet every
My
step
stomach
they took
dropped.
led
This
them
wasn't a
deeper
coincidence.
into the house's heart. The air was colder, and the shadows more tangible. They reached a room that seemed to be a library, but the books were old, bound in leather that looked like human skin. The pages were filled with writings in a language none of them could recognize, but the letters seemed to shift when you looked away, forming faces that whispered silently. Omar tried to pick up one of the books. As soon as he touched it, a hand, not human, pale and skeletal, shot out from the shelf, grabbing his wrist with an unyielding grip. He screamed, and the others rushed to pull him away, but the hand wouldn't let go. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and in the brief flashes they saw the room filled with shadowy figures. Dozens of them, all staring, all faceless, all moving closer. They realized then that the house wasn't just haunted, it was alive with souls trapped, screaming silently, feeding on fear. "Run!" Farhan shouted, yanking Omar free. They bolted through the passage, but the house seemed endless.